After sailing down the Swan River late yesterday, the Giants are still the talk of the town. Attendance figures estimate more than half the state's population turned out to see the massive marionettes over the three-day spectacular, making it the city's biggest ever event. Cindy Lavrentic has more.
It's a story that captivated our city, the history of our land told through the Giants. The little girl giant first stole the heart of thousands on Friday, waking up for the first time. Perth Street setting the scene in a tale of our Anzacs. The diver stayed sleeping outside the Perth train station, awaking on Saturday. On Sunday, the grand finale, the little girl and diver giant doing one last lap of Langley Park before the city said goodbye. 1.4 million people turned out over the 3 days to follow the journey. Hundreds of Western Australian volunteers worked to make it all happen. Local businesses also called in. LOYD NIVEN was one of the main crane drivers moving the little girl giant and fell in love with the unique story.
Everything was practiced quite a lot, extensively, and checked, make sure there was no mistakes, because once we got into the city, there was no room for errors. City cafes and restaurants packed as crowds gathered. The $5 million event, the biggest our city has seen.
Great publicity for Western Australia. Those images would have gone all around the world, but it wasn't done for that reason. It was to have a free event for everyone and to have another special event to mark the centenary of Anzac.
I think the City of Lights became the land of the Giants this past weekend, and we should all be very, very proud of what was achieved.
Cindy Lavrentic, 10 Eyewitness News.
Perth Festival organisers say the operators behind the Giants' visit to Perth were overwhelmed by their reception. It's the city's first day without the little girl and diver. Gone, but impossible to forget.
These stunning scenes worth re-showing. The Giants sail down the Swan River on their way back home to France. The economic impact on Perth, difficult to gauge so early after the event, but the feel-good effect on our city, immeasurable. The biggest turnout of any city for the Giants, bar London and Santiago in Chile.
And by far, for them, the best audience they've ever had on a first visit.
Unforgettable moments like the dancing girl, the flying diver and the meeting of uncle and niece. Scenes Perth won't soon forget.
They won't do the show just for fun. They do it because they want to tell stories. And in Perth, they found amazing stories and amazing collaborators.
One group of people who will never forget their walk with the Giants were local people who helped make them walk. 18-year-old YVAN KARLSSON was one of 16 West Australians in the cast of the Lilliputians, a professional performer in front of the biggest crowd of his life.
You feel like a rock star, especially the Saturday morning when we arrived to wake up the diver giant. You're walking through the crowd and they're cheering at you and you haven't done anything.
But for 3 days, they kept Perth enchanted.
Do you think anything in your future career will match this? Hard to say, I suppose.
Probably not, and that's why Sunday was so emotional, because you're looking at all these people thanking you for something you've done, and probably I'll never perform for that many people ever again.
They've nearly finished clearing up Langley Park. Soon there'll be no signs that the Giants were ever here. But it's unlikely they'll ever be forgotten. Jeff Parry, 7 News.
Tourism bosses say we should be pushing for more public arts events after more than 1 million people turned out to see the Giants over the weekend. Today, 9 News captured the final images of the diver giant as he was packed away and the puppet masters recovered.
The little girl and the diver attracted giant crowds and delivered a giant economic boost to Perth. 1.4 million people crowded into the CBD over 3 days. A flotilla followed them as they left. And as the massive marionettes were packed away last night, ready to be shipped back to France, our city was still enjoying the benefits.
I would say most of the trade was of a food and beverage nature or accommodation, so I guess it would be in the tens of millions of dollars.
Some came from overseas and interstate. Most hotels were fully booked and Perth shops were also packed. It cost $5 million to stage the performance, paid for by the state government and private donors. But the City of Perth says visitors splashed out even more.
We had to buy cartons of milk from Woolworths because we just couldn't handle the amount of people that came.
For Leo Agnello's Forest Place Cafe, it was a good headache to have.
We had 8 people taking orders, but it was just, we've never encountered crowds like that before in all the years that we've been here.
There was respite also today for those who helped move the Giants through the city, like Fremantle circus performer STEE Andrews.
To be putting so much into this show as a Lilliputian and having so much given back tenfold by the crowd was incredible.
The 24-year-old was responsible for moving the little girl.
We did become attached, and yeah, it's sad now that she's left because it was almost like a friend had come to visit.
The Tourism Council is urging the state government not to rest on its laurels and continue pushing for major events that will attract international and interstate visitors. They say every tourist stays in the city for a couple of days and spends at least $1,000 each. But if the Giants come back to Perth, well, we'll have to wait and see.
I'm hearing from Royal Deluxe themselves that they think this is probably the biggest audience they've had.
Josh Yerger, 9 News.